Hello and welcome. This is Lights Out and away we go with the episode. With the Formula 1 podcast for fans and by fans. I'm Will, and as I look across the digital garage, as always, I'm joined with my co-driver, or shall I say my co-host Sam. Hello Sam, how are you?
Hello Will, hello listeners. I'm very well, thanks. Not too bad. Speaking to you from a cabin on the south coast. It's one of the bits of the south coast that's not flooded, thankfully.
Very good.
For us. But,
you did say you were going to be in a hot tub, and I was hoping you'd be dialing in from the hot tub, but that must be for later. That must be post-pod activities for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the background noise, never mind the risk of me dropping a load of recording gear into a hot tub, is pretty high. So I thought I'd save that for afterwards. How are you? How's your weekend been?
Yeah, very good. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I was away at my parents' up in Cheshire, and I was at the local fireworks. Went for a nice, lovely Italian meal in the centre of Windsor. I sat behind Matteo Kovacic, the Manchester City midfielder.
Oh wow! Oh, I hope you watched your ankles.
He was sat down, so my ankles were fine. But he sat right behind me. Got a lovely photo of the back of his head. He's kind of one of those players that's not big enough to ask for a photo, really, especially if you're like, I'm a Wigan fan, so not that much interest. But if it was Haaland or someone a bit more exciting,
Sean Maloney.
Yeah, Sean Maloney. Yeah.
Ben Watson,
Ben Watson,
someone proper A-list.
Exactly. Well, if it's Haaland or Pep or Grealish would have got
Franco Di Santo.
No, all this Wigan trivia from 2013-14 coming back to you. I won't ask you to name a Wigan player of this season, but Wigan did win at the weekend against Exeter for the second time, so that was very satisfying.
Well, Exeter are just terrible, aren't they? We've discussed this on the podcast before, and sad times for all Exeter fans out there.
Yeah, my team won. Your team, Arsenal, lost in controversial style.
Let's not.
Yeah, we'll brush past that because we usually sometimes stop on football, but we'll move past that. Let's just go straight to Formula 1.
Yes.
I was driving back, so I listened to the 5 Live coverage, which was actually quite entertaining because whenever it buffered, it wouldn't skip it, it would pause. So I think we listened to the Formula 1 for what must have been nearly 3 hours because it buffered a couple of times. So the race did drag out, but I heard all of it bar the very first 4 laps, I think it was. But
so you didn't hear any of the red flag incident?
No, but I've caught up on the highlights of that. But yeah, what did you make of the race?
It's one I love. I really look forward to Brazil every year, and it was a bit of a downer this year.
Yeah.
Not just because of how it went for certain teams and certain drivers, which we'll discuss, but I just thought in general it was a bit meh. The most exciting thing that happened all weekend was right at the end of the very last lap, and one of the grandstand's roof got ripped off by a massive gust of wind and a storm and what. So I don't know, it wasn't brilliant. I'm not a massive, I think we're going to save the sprint discussion for another podcast, aren't we? But I'm not a massive fan of the current format, seemingly, along with everybody else who is either a fan of or involved in sport. So hopefully the FIA see fit to change that for next season. But in general, it was a bit of a meh Grand Prix, I thought. There was an interesting couple of laps where it looked like Lando might challenge Max for the lead, but as soon as that sort of ended and Max managed to keep him behind, he just steps on the pedal a bit, and I think showed Red Bull have definitely got some pace in hand, probably kicking around the car somewhere. So it wasn't the most exciting race. The first lap obviously was interesting because there was that big crash at the beginning, which it didn't seem like it was anybody's fault really. So there's not really a huge amount to discuss there. It's quite a narrow turn into turn 1 down there. A couple of drivers didn't really have anywhere to go. So apart from that incident, and then obviously the battle for third between Alonso and Perez at the end, which we should cover because that was quite good. It wasn't the best race. I wouldn't say you missed a classic. It's a bit of a shame really, because I do love the Brazil Grand Prix, as you know.
The radio commentary was saying this has been really quite dull, and when it looked like there was going to be a battle for the lead, they got really excited, and they're like, oh, we've just been massively let down there because we had 4 corners of quite close fighting and then nothing at all. Another Max win, his 17th of the season. I think you're right. Pretty safe for him. I think was that the first time we've seen Max lead a race where someone has become within DRS range of him? Have I made that up? Because
I don't remember it happening. It may well have done at another stage during the season, but I don't remember it if it did. So it shows how rare it is for sure.
Yeah, and I think as well, it shows you how good that Red Bull is, that he can battle. He can be sort of caught out with the battle with Norris, and then, like I say, pull away. I think he won by 8 seconds, which is It's it's quite a reasonable gap considering the other gaps we've had recently. But I think the last couple of races, the gap between second and first has been closing, whereas this was routine for him. And the pessimist in me thinks this is going to be 2024. We're just going to see him absolutely walk it again. I'm just not feeling too optimistic at the moment.
No, I can understand why. I do think they had quite a lot of pace in hand. Actually, Red Bull. I think almost Lando getting into DRS range and then having a bit of a lunge, sort of caught them out a little bit, maybe, or caught Max out. And I think as soon as he defended that position, I think he just realised, I need to open a little bit of a gap here, and just did. It wasn't difficult. I think that's quite a telling moniker, really, for the rest of this season, or the next couple of races, and obviously the start of next. I think you're probably right. I think we are, unfortunately, going to be in for another Red Bull Max Verstappen masterclass next year. But you never know. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, some teams can pull themselves together and put together a competitive package. But it looks pretty bleak, I think, for everybody chasing Max at the moment, because even in a race where Lando was very, very good, he was very good yet again, and he did threaten for the lead very briefly. He didn't really lay a glove on Max after that point. So, yeah, tough times.
Yeah, I think it's one of those debates that we've had before with our good friend of the podcast, Richard, about what difference the driver makes and what difference the car makes. And we've always said that the car is like 60-70%, and the driver is that final bit, but they can really make a massive difference. Whereas from what they were saying on the commentary about how the battle went, it didn't seem like Lando was off it. It sounded like he drove the car really well, and he was good at managing the tires. And at the end of the day, when someone is driving as well as he is and informed as he is, it is just the difference that the car makes, and that gives Max so much confidence that he just knows he's in an absolute weapon, that he can just attack and defend whenever he means to, and pull away whenever he needs to. And it's I think like you say, there's not much more to analyze really, because in the commentary they didn't get mentioned again in the 5 Live commentary until Max crossed the line, and that was it. Basically, it was job done. But yeah, I suppose we should come on to the race for third then. I mean, a great battle from Perez and Alonso. Like I say, it was kind of building for quite a few laps, with Alonso being very creative, changing his line as he was going through corners, trying to get any advantage, trying to throw Perez. Perez then goes for it on the penultimate lap, and it gets the overtake done. But yeah, some masterful driving from Alonso to set up the move in the first corner, to then by the fourth corner pull alongside him and jump ahead of him, and then defend it through the rest of the course. And then was it 0.05 seconds the gap as they crossed the line? And the photo is amazing. It sounded like the gap was bigger as they crossed the line, but actually it's whiskers, isn't it? It's really, really close. What did you make of Alonso's masterful defense?
It was masterful. I think that's exactly the right word. It was. He's just a very clever driver, I think. I mean, he's brilliant, obviously, bags of pace, and just a fantastic driver in general. But I think in those situations where it was clearly going to be quite a tactical end to the race for them, because I think Alonso knew the Aston Martin probably did have the pace at some point to get back past the Red Bull potentially. But if he gave up track position at the wrong time, he was going to leave himself in a really tricky situation. So I don't think he let Perez through in the penultimate lap or anything like it. But I think as soon as he saw Perez go for it in the penultimate lap, I think there was that little glimmer of hope that he thought, I've got still got an opportunity then, because I've got 2 big long straights to come, and can have a pop on the last lap. And he just timed it. Just the timing of it was absolutely perfect. He didn't overdo it on the straight, force Perez into a bit of a defensive position in turn 1. And as we've seen previously, so you remember when Hamilton won there from the back of the grid 2021. Is the exact move he put on Max there, where he sent a bit of a dummy up the inside, got Max defending into turn 1, and then saved it all for the following straight. And Alonso did the exact same to Perez and managed to take him with DRS, which was, it's just a brilliant move. And then, the race for the line was absolutely brilliant. We don't often see finishes that close. I was a bit annoyed with I have to say, I do think the Sky Sports what do you call it? The direction of
the
video,
direction,
the video direction was just pretty poor all day. Actually, they missed quite a lot of interesting things.
Oh, really?
but they cut away like at the point at which the two cars started like drag racing up the straights. You don't actually get to see them cross the line as closely as you'd like. It was only when you see the photo afterwards you realise just how close it was, and you had to rely on the commentator saying, "Oh, and they finished less than the 10th apart." And it was like, well, I'd have liked to have seen them finish less than the 10th apart rather than being told about it. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating. But yeah, it was really good. Yeah, full credit to Alonso, holding back a much faster car and then timing his counter attack, let's say, perfectly. Brilliant.
I wonder if Perez wishes now that he should have done it. He attacked her on the final lap.
Yeah, he should. 100%.
Because he just gave Alonso an opportunity, didn't he? Whereas if it's the final lap, it's done and dusted. And he would have been, if the roles had been reversed going into that final corner, I think he would have easily pulled away by a bit bigger than the gap was at the end. But I mean, for Perez, that's probably his best performance in a long time, right? He came through the field, and to just be pipped on the line, that's pretty good going. And Alonso, we've said that the Aston Martin's been absolutely nowhere. They kind of shot back up the grid this weekend.
They did,
and he was on form when they needed him.
Yeah, they did. I've no idea where the Aston Martin pace came from. I've not actually had a chance to look at what they did to the car over the course of the weekend, because I've been on holiday and managed to cut away a few hours to watch the race on Sunday, but that was about it. So yeah, I really want to look at what they've done to try and find out why they've jumped up so far. But yeah, I mean, something strange has definitely happened when Lance Stroll's qualifying P3.
Yeah.
No disrespect, Lance, but come on.
And he finished well as well, didn't he?
They took Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, so
yeah,
they've clearly fixed something about that car, haven't they?
Yeah.
But yes, no, really good weekend for Aston Martin, and yeah, I guess it kind of makes it an interesting couple of races ahead now, because I'd sort of discounted them really from a championship perspective, certainly in terms of the battle with McLaren, but it could be quite interesting now, given the sort of seeming relatively equal on pace.
Yeah, and I think they've been very open, Aston Martin, saying that they've been using the last couple of races as just testing sessions to try and find out what's going wrong with their car and to set them up for 2024, because testing is so limited and so precious. Fair play to them. If they've suddenly found that pace that they had at the start of the season, it sets them off into a good place for 2024, then that's really good. I mean, I did almost suspect had they switched cars with Mercedes, because that car did not go well. But yeah, I think you say if you're Christian Horner, you've got to be pretty happy with Perez. He starts 9th and gets up to 4th, and should have could have been 3rd. I do think it reminds me of the genius of Alonso. I think it's one of the best drivers of his career, and to be 42 and to be that on it, and just to be playing that well at this end of the season. He really did deserve that 3rd place. I thought it was great. I suppose we should come on to Mercedes then.
My Latifi winners for the week.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I mean, I was close thinking them with Latifi, but I've got a different one which I'll come on to in a minute.
Okay.
Where do we start with Mercedes weekend? Lewis finishing 8th, having qualified 5th, and at one point looking like he was going to qualify. He was going to challenge Lando for 2nd in the restart, and Russell, he qualified 8th and retired because of a potential fault that with the car. Yeah, where do you want to start?
So the recipe for a fast Formula One car is a car that's fast down the straights, relatively quick with lots of downforce through the corners, and that doesn't chew its tyres up. And all three of those things were things Mercedes really, really screwed themselves out of basically across the weekend. It was incredibly slow, relatively speaking. Bear in mind, it's still a Formula One car, so it can still do 200 miles an hour. But compared to its competitors on the straight, it was very slow, and it was sliding all over the place in the corners. I don't know if you've seen any of the onboards, but like Lewis and George both of them were fighting the car all the way around the circuit. And it's not, it's not a super high G circuit. There are quite a few slow corners, and then the straights are big, long, straight ones. It's not, there aren't loads of high speed corners, as it were. There's a couple towards the end of the lap, but not many. So seeing them slide around, it was very poor. And the reason for the Latifi really is that a team with those resources just shouldn't find themselves in a position where they're struggling on setup as badly as they are, because it's not, the car's not great. I think we're all agreed that the car isn't brilliant, but it's still finished on the podium pretty consistently this year. They're probably going to finish 2nd in the constructors, short of a miracle from somewhere else down the grid over the next couple of races. And they have got pretty close the last couple of weeks. I mean, Lewis finished P2 confirmed last time and finished P2 obviously with a dodgy worn plank the week before. Like it looked like they were making progress and they were in the fight. And I was feeling as you know, I was feeling very bullish about Lewis's chances on Sunday. So yeah, to see them as poor as they were on pace and basically slower than sort of 4 other teams on the grid was quite a surprise. And yeah, seeing Lewis overtaken by Lance Stroll in an Aston Martin that last week, I mean, it hasn't finished a race for 3 weeks, geez, but like when it has, it's finished like 15th, 16th, 17th. Like it was pretty embarrassing. And I can understand why both drivers were in a kind of very frustrated state post race. And yeah, I do accept that having only one session to set the car up for a race isn't ideal. And I do think that's something that the FIA and people should look at when they think about setting up weekends for sprints next year, because it does seem a bit unfair, particularly with like changeable weather and stuff. They should have the option to make more changes in advance and have more time to test things. But everyone else had the same operating parameters as Mercedes, and they just got it massively wrong this weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, to drop down from clearly the second fastest car and some mad people predicting them to potentially win the race.
To crazy people.
Yeah. To being arguably the fifth fastest car was in the space of a week. It's kind of baffling. And I thought Toto's comments afterwards were quite telling. He's just like, it's just not good enough. And Lewis saying 2 more races in this car and then you can go away, have a break, and come back and hope the one next year is a bit better. Very frustrating. And then obviously George had a DNF as well because they had a cooling issue. Just a catalogue of issues and errors and problems really. And I think they've got a lot to do over the next couple of weeks or couple of races just to really cement, I guess, hope for the drivers and the fan base probably. But
for us,
yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, we're pretty close to pinning our hope on a McLaren or a Ferrari probably next year ahead of a Mercedes if we don't see some progress. But yeah, it's a shame. And yeah, they just had a very poor weekend, and in a weekend where there weren't really a catalogue of errors from the usual suspects like the FIA or Sky Sports, notwithstanding my comments about the video editing earlier, or what was it? Not video editing. What did I mean?
TV direction.
The TV. That's the one. TV direction. Short of awarding a Latifi for dodgy TV direction, there weren't many candidates left, so I thought Mercedes were probably worth another one for them, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I was weighing it up. But yeah, no. I mean, I think also what's crazy is that, this time last year, George won the sprint and he won the Grand Prix. And that was probably in a car that was worse overall than this year's car.
I don't know. They've got less. Do you know they have less World Constructors points this year than they had last year?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I know they're more spread out because other teams like Aston Martin and McLaren have been much better this year than last, so there haven't been so many kind of slam dunk Mercedes points finishes. But I do think there's something in that. I don't know if I want to say they've gone backwards, but they've not really gone forwards for my money.
Well, you think this year's car is just a mess of a car because it wasn't where they started the season. They started with the no side pods again, and then they junked it, a couple of races in. So they've had to sort of play catch up with that. I mean, maybe we all got a bit won over by the recent performance of it and think, they're up to second. The upgrades they brought in Austin have improved it. Whereas actually they were just circuits that really benefited the car, and actually underneath it's still an absolute monster and a beast of a car. And I think you're right. Like, it was interesting the comments that Toto was saying afterwards. I think he said this car doesn't deserve a win. Whereas I've not really felt like it's been that level of car compared to the W13, when the W13 would like literally wreck Lewis's back because it was bouncing so much. They seem to have had more unexplainable problems in last year's car, whereas this year's car just seems to be they're just lacking performance. And again, this happened in Austin slightly differently, but like they struggled with only having one practice session to do everything they needed to set them up for the race weekend, hence why they didn't spot the issue with the floor being worn away. Again, they've had one issue this weekend, one practice session this weekend, and they've looked awful. I mean, I'm watching the highlights. I think it was the F1 TV commentator that was on the highlights on YouTube, and he was saying, "Oh, look, that's another slam dunk easy pass for the Alpine. Oh, there's another one for Sainz." Like, it was the ease that everyone passed them, not because Mercedes weren't fighting. It's the drivers couldn't fight because the performance was so stunning. It genuinely looked like, from the highlights, that they were overtaking back markers or an F2 car. It just looked so slowly, going so slow, and I reckon Lewis and George must be pretty pissed off and pretty fed up. And especially Lewis, it's such a special race for him, and he probably did think he had a chance, and then he's probably quite shocked to see the car.
Yeah, this whole how Mercedes manage a weekend thing's a bit of a recurring theme now, isn't it? I think there've been a lot of occasions the last couple of years where we've commented on the fact that Mercedes' first free practice session generally goes badly, and then they steadily improve the car over the course of the next couple of free practices, and then they're somewhere in qualifying, and then they find the car's actually got some good race pace and finish, respectably somewhere in the order. I do think they need to figure out what they do in that first session, particularly on sprint weekends, because you can't start from so far behind. Never mind the concept of the car is already clearly not up to scratch and not competitive with Red Bull and others. But yeah, at least the weekend and the plan to extract as much performance as possible should be better for sure. And I think that's something that I think Toto and others will probably be seriously worried about going into next season, alongside many of the other things we've talked about recently. The pit stops and stuff. Again, there were a couple of pretty slow ones yesterday.
The
strategies weren't brilliant.
Yeah.
I know they've really struggled on their tyres, and that's why they had to think about doing innovative things on the strategy and try the undercuts and stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty dire weekend.
But on the strategy, what's also a bit concerning, and then this has been a theme for I don't know how many races now. It's been a big theme for a lot of races recently. They just don't seem to know what the plan is to manage their drivers. There probably is the mindset of let them race, but too often it just seems confusion. But also, they doesn't seem they've got the priorities on it. Surely the priority is Lewis getting second, right, and or maximising. For me, I was listening to it yesterday. I thought, maybe the priority is to get Lewis second, but maybe on reflection now, as I'm saying this, maybe they just need to do everything together to get second in the constructors. But I just get the sense that they're not pulling in the same direction. There's confusion between the drivers about who's leading and who gets to pass who. And I was almost going to give him a little TV, but I'm giving an honourable mention to it. He's got very close, but I just did not like the tone of George's messages. I just thought it was very arrogant, very cocky, very demanding. Particularly the one who said, "I've not been on the radio because I think it's quite obvious. Why haven't you let me past, or why have I not through?" You're against a 7-time world champion, just rein yourself in a little bit there. I don't know. I just comes across quite arrogant in a way that his performances haven't lived up to demand that sort of behavior really. But again, that comes back to the team. Where's the plan? Where's they saying if they're following each other, surely they should find out quite quickly who needs to be in the lead or who's quicker and who's gonna let one pass. It just seems like at the moment, it just seems a lot of George arguing over the radio or them clashing on the track.
Yeah, it's a team still very much set in a kind of winning world championships comfortably kind of mindset, I think. If you look at how Ferrari work their drivers together, and the same goes for McLaren and Aston Martin sometimes as well, they are all teams that haven't challenged for world championships for a while. They're all used to battling for as many points as possible and finishing as high up the constructors as they can. I don't think Mercedes really think like that, and they probably should have done this season, really, with hindsight. I obviously want Lewis to finish second, and I think it would be an interesting kind of tale of the season if he did manage to finish second. But I think from a Mercedes perspective, they should really have a very clear kind of objective in mind. And in situations like this weekend as well, where and we've talked about this before, fine, if they're fighting over a podium or even a race win, or there's something competitive to go for in the championship, by all means, let them race. But in this situation, they should have had a much clearer plan in place, because they weren't challenging for the win based on the pace. They weren't challenging for podiums based on the pace. But if they had told Lewis and had a conversation at the start, like, Lewis, if you find yourself with George behind you and he's being attacked, let's do the kind of Carlos Sainz DRS bants, and we'll try and keep them behind as much as we can and work as a team. But it was quite obvious they hadn't had that discussion at all. And I can understand, I think I agree with you. I think the tone of George's messages and stuff, he probably needs to think about that, because, as you say, he is up against he's teammates with a 7-time world champion, and I get the kind of drive to be better. But yeah, the way he communicates sometimes, it's not, I don't think it's conducive to getting what he wants, let's say.
No.
And yeah, although in this situation, I probably think George probably did have a bit of pace on Lewis, and maybe they should have let him through. But that should have been a team decision that was made long before any radio messages were needed, as we've seen from every other team, basically, whenever that kind of thing happens. But yeah, it's just not. It's all very dysfunctional at the moment, isn't it? Yeah, it's hard to see, and this is why I think it's such a letdown, or from a fan perspective, because we both agree. I think a Mercedes Lewis Hamilton package is the most likely one to challenge Max next year. With the team in its current situation, the drivers doing, behaving as they are, the package overall not working particularly well, senior members of Mercedes leaving. Mike Elliott's just gone, isn't he? There's not a lot there to really pin your kind of hopes on. So
no, but then Mike Elliott, the was he chief technical officer?
he was, yeah.
He was the one to took responsibility, and he had ownership of the W13, and then they've brought back in James Allison, who was doing some other projects, who's a very well renowned technical director of Formula One teams, and he's been in the team for a while. But like it said that the W15 is his car, so hopefully he can fix it and correct it. But you're right, it just doesn't seem that Mercedes have their house in order. And it's kind of good that they're not challenging for championships at the moment, because if this was playing out for wins and for crucial points, like they would just be the victim of their own success. And they'd almost be a bit like Ferrari. And that's what Ferrari have been like for the last 5-6 years, where they've just got complacent. They've not had their strategy team well. They've not had the pit stop crew well. Like they've just made a lot of unforced errors and self-inflicted errors. Whereas you look at Red Bull at the moment, and you look at Mercedes at the height, they're just clinical. They don't make mistakes. They're just really on it. Whereas, Mercedes, I think they say, are a victim of their own success and probably acting like they are a world championship team, winning team, when the reality is they're not that as well.
We should have said, by the way, at the start of the podcast, that Max has broken another record this weekend.
What's the record again?
Ascari's win percentage from the 50s.
Wow.
So I think it's like 77% now or something. Max has won 77% of races this year, and it's obviously going to go up, or it can't go down from here. So yeah, he's broken another record that stood for 70 something years.
I think as well, he's won 524 points, and the next team above, like closest to that, is behind Red Bull, is Mercedes on 382. Like it's just silly. And he's going to win the next. He's going to win the next 2 races, so he'll finish the season on 19 race wins probably.
Yeah.
Which is fair play to him, incredible. But yeah, well, the predictions game, you did boldly predict Max to win. You did boldly predict Lewis to win.
I did,
and I actually felt sorry to you when I saw that how it was unfolding. I thought, it would have been so good if it come off, but not even to be in the conversation, and just to go backwards rather than forwards is not what you want to see, especially when we were hoping on someone else that wasn't Carlos Sainz or Max Verstappen or Perez to win a race.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, on that depressing note, we'll take a quick break, and hopefully when we're back from the break, we'll be in jollier spirits. Hello, welcome back from the break. Hope you had a jolly old time. We were just getting excited for Sam's trip to the hot tub straight after this episode is finished recording. So, I'll be thinking of you as I'm editing the podcast.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome. We've picked ourselves up from the depressing tone at the end of the first half when we talked about Mercedes, but we should just go back, talk about 2 things that we need to do before we get on to prediction game results. First, the My Latifi. I've decided to give it to Esteban Ocon, who was going through the first corner in qualifying, was it?
Yep.
Sprint qualifying?
Yeah. It's got turns 1 and 2.
Yeah. And oversteered, lost control of the car. And there was Fernando Alonso just minding his own business, going quite slow on a slow lap, but just on the race, just slightly off the racing line. And Ocon lost control of the car and properly smashes into the back of him. A big repair job for both Aston Martin and for Alpine. And so that's not the reason why he's getting the Latifi. He's getting the Latifi because in his interview straight afterwards, he was like, yeah, I did not lose control of the car. That was completely Alonso's fault. And he did send a very expletive-filled radio message blaming Alonso for the crash when it's, I think nearly everyone bar Esteban Ocon would say it was Ocon's fault. So, Yeah, I think he deserves that one. And I did see someone comparing him to Roman Grosjean, someone that regularly scores points, but just got some absolute blunders in it. And I do think that now shoots him up to I think he's had the most Latifis of any driver this season. So congratulations to him. And he'll have to wait till the end of the season to see if he's claimed that award for being the most Latifi'd driver this season in our debut of the Latifis. The second thing we should come on to before the prediction games is Charles Leclerc's race, or shall I say his lack of a race, because on the formation lap, he spun off and was out of the race.
Yep.
Sam, your thoughts?
You mean Charles Leclerc?
Yeah, unlucky.
Terrible joke. Terrible fortune.
That's a very dad joke, and you are a dad, so you can deliver that joke. So well done.
Thanks, mate. I mean, I'm proud to say I was very capable of delivering such terrible jokes pre Beatty arriving, but yes, I'm really leaning into it now. He lost hydraulics. But a few people were straight on Twitter saying it was driver error. It definitely was not driver error. He lost hydraulics in the car, and it speared him off the road and had a massive shunt in the formation lap. He's got to be one of the most unlucky Formula 1 drivers ever.
Yeah,
right? Surely.
Yeah. I mean, he did say that as he crashed the car, he was like, "I'm just the unluckiest." But yeah.
And he's so good. It's so frustrating. It's really frustrating because I really like him. Like I do think he'll win a championship at some point. He'll find himself in the right place in the right car, the right time. And he is fantastically fast. You know, he's Mr. Saturday. He always qualifies really well. Puts the car on pole on weekends. He has no right to. Just generally a fantastic driver and just seemingly a really nice bloke as well. Just perennially beset by misfortune. And this season, it's just been an absolute joke. You sent me through the list of things that's gone wrong. Do you want me to run through it just for fun?
Yeah, go on, run through it.
So Bahrain, DNF. Saudi, penalty. Australia, DNF. Baku, no issues. P2 in sprint, P3 in the race. Well done, Baku. Miami, he had an issue, but also the car was shit. Monaco, penalty. Spain, problems in qualifying, pit lane start. Canada, massive strategy issues in qualifying. Austria, penalty in sprint shootout. P2 in the race, no issues. Hooray. Silverstone, electrical issue. Strategy issues in the race. Hungary, a 9-second pit stop and he had no water. Spa, no issues. Finished P3 in the race. Just there's a theme here. When there's no issues with the car, Charles Leclerc finished as well. Fact. Netherlands did not finish. Monza, no issues, P4 in the race, hooray. Singapore, cooling issues during the race, some strategy issues. Japan, no issues, P4 in the race. Qatar, penalty in the sprint, maximised the race result, well done him. Austin, disqualified. Mexico, no issues, P3 in the race. Brazil, lift and coast during the whole sprint, didn't even manage to start because he lost hydraulics. and that doesn't even consider all the crap that happened to him last season.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him. He must be pulling his hair out. And he shouldn't be. He's still a young man. He should have lots of hair.
Yeah, and so of those, I think we've had 19 races now, is it? Is it 19? 19, 20 races? There were only 6 races there where you said that he's not had any issues at all.
Yeah. It's a poor hit rate.
Yeah, I feel like the next piano song he releases is just going to be him screaming whilst playing the piano because we're just playing breaking up a piano because, it really has really not gone well for him this season. And like, there have been times where he's made mistakes, but again, like you say, a lot of those issues, they're out of his control. And yeah, that must be so frustrating when you're turning up, you're ready for the race, and then you can't even make it to the starting line. And like I say, he kind of deserves the world championship because he's such a talent. He's probably the 3rd best driver on the grid in my eyes. And you kind of think, thinking like, it's inevitable he'll get one at one point. But I'm starting to fear now, like, is this just going to be the way his career goes? Is he just going to be unlucky and be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it never quite come off? Like, does he have to do something quite bold or do something like that? Because I would feel like it's a real shame if he ended up with a really bad, almost an infamous, like, he's had 50, 70 poles. I don't know, it's a ridiculous number of poles, but his win rate is way low, and it's already way low at the moment. I think, if you compare it to Verstappen's got a much better ratio. But I feel sad for him. It's a lot of sympathy for Charles.
So I'm really hopeful Ferrari pull something out of the bag next year. I'm holding on to a lot of hope there because they've got a good driver lineup. Their package is flawed, but there's a good concept there, I think, at its heart. I really I really want to see Ferrari do better next year.
Yeah.
not just for Charles' sake, but for everybody else's too. I mean, he's like 22 points behind Lando in the World Championship now.
Wow.
Bear in mind, Lando didn't score a point for the first 4 races or more, maybe more than that.
Wow.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, I do think for the sport, it needs a competent, impressive Ferrari, and I've enjoyed those seasons. There's been a few of them over the last couple of years where they've been on form and they've given it a real fight. But then I don't know. I get quite sad when I see the incompetent, unlucky, useless Ferrari turn up. It's kind of like Jekyll and Hyde, isn't it? One time they're amazing, and then next thing you know, they're absolutely all over the place and an absolute basket case.
Yeah.
Well, poor Charles. He'll be hoping for 2 strong finishes towards the end of the season, with 2 races to go. Let's go on to the predictions game and the results. Obviously, we know that one of yours has not come through, but with Vegas on the horizon, you're going to give us the scores on the doors with 2 races to go.
I am, yes. Okay, so Brazil Grand Prix 2023 results. You had Carlos Sainz. You predicted him to finish in 5th. He finished in 6th place, so you got 1 point for him. Very good.
Thank you, Carlos.
You had Daniel Ricciardo, who you predicted to finish in 8th. He finished in 13th, so you got 5 for him.
Yeah, he was unlucky.
And then you had George Russell.
You
predicted him to finish in 7th, and he was classified 15th in the end after his DNF. Could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse.
But you picked up 8 points there, so you finished on a total of 14.
Okay, not great.
I had his goatedness, Lewis Hamilton, and foolishly predicted him to finish in 1st.
No, don't down yourself. You made the right call at the right time. It wasn't your fault that Mercedes had let you down.
That's true. Yeah, screw you, Mercedes. He ended up finishing in P8. Yikes. So I got 7 points for him. I had Yuki Tsunoda, predicted to finish him 10th. He finished in 9th, so I picked up 1 point for Yuki. Then I had Daddy's favourite boy, which, as you as you remember, I was not pleased about, and I'm still not pleased about. I predicted Stroll to finish in 13th, and Aston Martin pulled a rabbit out hat. He finished in 5th, and I got 8 points to finish on a total of 16. So you've won the week by 2 points.
Wow! I thought you had nailed it then, but wow, that's so unlucky.
Yeah, I did so. I pre-podcast Will, and I had a quick chat about the overall sporting view of the weekend, and England being knocked out of the Cricket World Cup, Arsenal being shafted, and then the Brazilian Grand Prix made for a hat-trick of shockers for me.
And then the prediction result on top of it.
Yeah, it was just the icing on the turdy-filled cake, probably. So yeah, I don't quite know where Lance Stroll and Aston Martin pulled that pace from. I'm going to get into some research at some point this week, find out where it's all come from. Just because I'm interested,
and maybe they heard this podcast, thought we need to pull flat, because Aston Martin have done the opposite to what you predicted. I think every time you've had them, yeah.
Very annoying. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say we'll do Vegas predictions in our Vegas preview episode, which will be out next week. Which Are you excited for Vegas?
I am. Should we do the totals?
Give us the totals.
Okay,
sorry,
I haven't got the totals, but I know what the gap is.
Okay.
So what I will say is the gap was 4 weeks ago 27 points.
Okay, I had a 27-point advantage.
You had a 27-point advantage. It's been whittled down. It is now 19 points. It was 14 after my fantastic Kota weekend, where I got 0, 0, and 6, and I think you got 3. You got treble sixes.
Yeah.
So that one really brought me back into the game. I think it was down to 14. And then I've had a couple of losses now, but they've been narrow ones. So I'm still in with a shout. But at 19, I need something to go significantly wrong for you and very, very right for me. I need to avoid all Aston Martin basically for the next 2 weeks. I think next 2 races.
Yeah, and if you can get double max, then you'll be quids in.
Yeah, double max, maybe double Red Bull. A couple of weeks would be good, or just like double Alfa Romeo or something, and just predict them finishing at the end at the back.
Yeah,
that'd be fun too.
I mean, the gap is closable, right? The gap is that. I thought when we've set up this game, I thought it could be like there'd be like a 60-point gap. But actually, to be only 18 points difference is not bad going.
It's not too bad, yeah. So let's have a look. So yeah, Kota, I closed the gap by 13. So that's the big difference. That was the big game changer. So a couple of weeks like that.
Yeah,
or one week like that, potentially.
Yeah, even 2 weeks like that, I'll be the one that'll be buying the Red Bull merch.
But yeah, the gaps previous to that were 5, 1, 7. Then we had a draw in Monza. Zandvoort 5. So yeah, I mean, generally, I would say the average gap's probably been like 5, somewhere between 5 and 10. So yeah,
So
maybe
if
a couple of
if
weeks.
you have a Coda type result next week,
It's all to play
it'll
for.
all to play for. Oh, I'm excited for this. This is going to be good.
But I've been behind all year. It would feel a bit. I did look at when I was looking back through all the results. I think I've won 2 of the last 10.
Wow.
And I think if I somehow do manage to like pull something out of the bag the next 2 races, I will feel quite dirty doing so. But I will still be pleased.
Well, Sam, I'll get a little comparison for you. It could be like the 2022-2023 Premier League title race where Arsenal led for the majority of the season, and right at the end, after a bitter battle, the Abu Dhabi state came through, and Manchester City won the Premiership at the important time. So that could still happen to you.
Thank you so much for that joyful comparison. Just so I'm about to go get a hot tub and enjoy the rest of my evening.
Yeah, it came to me. I thought it'd end on that happy note for you.
Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you enjoyed, please do share it with a friend. Hopefully they enjoy the podcast more than Charles Leclerc has enjoyed his year, or should I say the last couple of years. Sorry, Charles. I really do hope for better for him for next year. Follow us on Twitter. We are at Lights Out Lads. On Instagram, we are at Lights Out Pod. Will, Vegas, excited?
Yes, I am. I played it on the F1 game. It's an okay circuit. It's quite good fun. Quite high speed. Although someone said the circuit looks like an upside down pig. Someone said it looks like the spider pig.
Oh, the spider pig from Simpsons.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like it's good that it's such a big new race that's on the calendar this season, and there's been a lot of hype from Formula One itself about it. We thought we'd have a bit of a look into it, see what's been going on in Vegas and the preparations for it. It's quite intriguing and odd things that have been going on that have not gone down too well in Sin City. So yeah, we thought we'd give it that bit of a preview, look into the race, make some predictions, and yeah, we'll have a good old chat about that next time out.
Look forward to that very much.
Yeah, so that's all from us. Sam's off to a hot tub. That's all the best. And goodbye.
Bye-bye.